with a hilarious hello and introduction was the executive producer of this podcast. But first, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm so backwards and crazy. I'm Sarita, but you probably know me as Bible Study Girl if you are an avid blog reader and are caught up on the blog. So, like I said, giving us our feisty hello introduction on the ones and twos was the executive producer of this podcast, Bible Study Brother.
What's good, people? It's your boy, I'm getting my intros mixed up. But anyway, it's Bible Study Brother, also known as Icarus Gray over at Gray Area Anime. And this is the most wonderful podcast of your day.
It's the most wonderful podcast of your day. Yes. And recently, I had an epiphany, a realization, if you will, that yes, Bible Study Brother, when he posed this podcast as a possibility to me, his idea was that we would break down the blogs or some of the blogs that I wrote on a daily basis, just talk about them, expand on them, because the blogs are typically no longer than a page. They're not really long. They're not meant to be like extensive. They're just meant to like touch on a subject, kind of get your mind going, and then you can go further.
It's very now I'm not gonna hold y'all long.
And I truly mean that. Like, I'm not holding you long. It's just a short snippet. Now, even though they are short, don't let the length fool you. I have had to take a long time sometimes to come through on the other side. And then we are on Zoom, and it's taking everything in Bible Study Brother not to laugh because he has such a...
Listen, you've been watching a lot of The Office, bro. So
he's so immature. I'm just not gonna do it. So immature.
You know what? Anyway, one of these days.
Well, listen, so I am more immature than you are. Let's be clear. I do realize and recognize that about myself.
All right, I got it from somewhere. That's all I'm saying. Listen, y'all.
Just because I'm not hearing myself talk. So anyway, back to the point. The point, my realization, my epiphany is that in season 2 of the Bible Study Girl podcast, we probably need to do what we said we were going to do and talk about some of these blogs. And when I was discussing that with Bible Study Brother, we both feel like now is an even better time to expand on them, because these blogs were written almost like we're starting at the beginning, but the blogs were written almost 3 years ago at this point. And it's a great opportunity to see how my mind has changed, if my mind has changed, or if things remain the same from when I originally sat down at the computer to compose these blogs. So that's what we're starting today.
Indubitably. And we are starting with if you would like to follow along with us, the blog post we're starting with today is "Your breath smell like milk."
Actually, and absolutely, and positively, I'm gonna say maybe it's the third blog that I ever wrote for the BibleStudyGirl.com blog space. So we're going to get right into the meat of what the blog is about. If you've grown up in the church or if you haven't, it doesn't matter whether you grew up in the church or not. In church.
And also if you're looking for it specifically, because I think they're set by date, so I don't know how
They are set by date. So if you go onto the BibleStudyGirl.com website, it's called a hamburger menu because it looks like a hamburger. It has 3 lines on the right-hand side of your screen. If you click on that, a search bar will pop up at the top, and you can search for "Your Breath Smells Like Milk," and then it will pull up that option. So you don't have to scroll all the way back, because there are like 52 pages worth of content. You don't want to have to scroll through to look. and find it. So if you take those steps, you too can get right to the point. And I'm sure if you go on BibleStudyGirl.com, you can search for the topic as well. Go all the way back to the beginning, guys. It's the third blog. So your breath smells like milk. One thing I will say, when I initially started writing the blogs, these blogs were coming out easily, quickly. I had so much in me that I needed to get out. So it was exciting. It was like a rush, like, ooh, let me sit down and type this out. And so your breath smells like milk came to me because why are you?
Because this one is funny. This story, like the story is funny because I remember when the story was told to me and knowing the inspiration for the story, how that sweet child has grown.
Sweet baby
It's
is
just
still
like
sweet baby.
nothing like that moment was exactly what you thought it was. I'm positive.
Like, I know it was. Sweet baby is very intelligent. She's always been incredibly smart. So she was the inspiration for this blog. We had an experience, and I'll let you guys read about it, when she was about 10 months old. So what I was saying originally is that in the church, we're taught that as you grow in Christ, you grow from drinking milk like an infant to like eating the meat of the word. And that means that you're not just satisfied with easy, simple biblical concepts. You want more. You want to grow. You want to mature. You don't go to church just out of routine, but you're seeking to grow. So that's really what the meat of the blog is about. And I realized that at that point of my life, I was pretty satisfied with milk. I didn't want to go deeper. I didn't want to search harder, and I wasn't really looking to grow. And I felt God saying to me with the start of the blog that I needed to go deeper and I needed to grow. The longer you're in a relationship with somebody, the closer you should get. The longer you're in a relationship with somebody, the more you should grow. And if you're not growing, that's a sign that there's something wrong with the relationship. And I realized that there was something wrong with me because I just wasn't seeking out to learn more about Christ and to know more about Christ. Now, I will have jags and periods of time, like especially when I was doing Bible study regularly with my Bible study girls, it was great. But in the times when I did not have that set scheduled time, I was satisfied going to church and just getting, the bare minimum. And so
I got even a better actual living example of that is
go ahead.
If you're still, so there are a lot of scriptures that people will throw at you and that you will hear all the time from the saved and the unsaved.
Mm-hmm.
If you're still on milk, you'll still let those things be the end all be all, because there is a whole chapter that either you can find out that church folks is using it wrong, the unsaved folks is using it wrong, or using it out of context, or also not following what the next verse says.
Correct.
And it's one of those, like, when you just start growing, because, growing up in a Baptist church, I think especially like the milk then that made it hard for me is you only talking to me about heaven and hell. And if you're talking to me about hell, and I'm scary, I don't watch scary movies or nothing.
He is like
scary. I'm not. No, like what I'm finna read the rest of this for, to be scared for what? Like the different lessons they would explain us, especially if you're explaining to us improperly, like your sins are on your parents until you're a teenager, like all of these different things that were probably Old Testament that probably do not apply currently or whatever, were things that you would know, and then you just kind of like it's so easy to fall into poor practice.
It is, and it's so hard. Let me say this. I also realize that I say a lot. And so every time I catch myself saying this podcast, I'm like, oh, just hold your thought. Hold your thought, girl. Don't say just let it be quiet and then go on. So I'm trying to get better with that. I think it's hard. I just did it again. I think it's hard to press for more, to seek more, to be motivated to do more. It's easy to go with the church sayings and accept that as fact. It's easy to go with the cliches. Mm-hmm. It takes effort to create a really good relationship with Christ. And a lot of times I just don't feel like doing it. I will say that my relationship, I feel like going back and looking at this blog, it was a precursor to what my life was going to be. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about having to eat the meat, chew it up, digest it. That's what was in front of me. I didn't know it at the time. And it's hard to chew when you're used to just the easy.
It's hard. I still ain't read Revelations. It's gonna take a while for me, but
it's hard.
That's some meat that is like, because you hear so many people, saying we in the end of times and all this other stuff, and like it's kind of like, okay. So recently we watched Encanto, and I was telling you about the reviews that my sister-in-law / baby sister was giving, and. So, like, in the reviews, it's just like, well, it was this, and it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and, blah, blah, blah. And we can't talk about Bruno. And, so that's currently where I'm at. It's like, I don't want to hear about the end. Even though, like, there are a lot of blessings and actual revelations in Revelations. Who'd have thunk? But it's one of those things where, like, there's so much meat to just kind of understand, and it pulls you, like you were saying, to be better. You have to start looking at yourself. Like, there are so many. If you go the next verse, like, I'm just gonna use a fake example that's probably in the Bible, but just listen. So, like, if something says,
a warning, this may not be in there. See, this is why y'all need to get off the milk. And go to the meat, because this could be.
Well, actually, I'm gonna just use an example. Like, you might read an article, and one sentence of the article says, "Eating chocolate leads to weight loss."
Right.
And if that's the only sentence you read, and you get out here and you eating pounds of chocolate. And the next sentence is with moderation and having a square ounce of chocolate in the morning to get your day and metabolism started, you can lose more weight.
That's a great analogy.
Chocolate is way more helpful than you would think. Or if on the other end, it's like chocolate can kill you. If you're not drinking, if you're eating it in pounds, like that's how the chapters, that's how the verses work. That's how reading the Old Testament and New Testament together, because there are some who will make it seem like the Old Testament is just, all the laws in there are gone, but that's not the point. A lot of the time, like, if you go and if you never look at the Old Testament, especially as like a teenager or something, and I've spoken about Samson before and how I'm like, that's literally your life. Your choices are in the life of Samson. Whether you choose to set yourself apart or you don't, this is what can happen to you. When you don't, you lose your gifts. You lose your gifts in a certain way. You can right yourself or correct yourself, and God is going to still get the glory no matter what it is that you do. But you can either be a part of that glory or you can be a side note. because you weren't doing what you needed to do?
This is on topic. Have you read the Bible cover to cover?
No.
Okay. Have you attempted to?
Yes.
What do you think stopped you from being successful with your attempt?
2020.
COVID stopped you from reading?
No. Well, last year, technically.
2021.
2021, excuse me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
2021.
Funny thing, same thing happened to me. Bible study cousin and I had started to read the Bible cover to cover, probably in year one of me writing the blog, because I was like, my name is Bible Study Girl. Kind of need to read the Bible, not just to match up with the name, but like it all tied in with me getting closer, getting into the meat of the word. And so my cousin loved a challenge.
You may have said this to me. I started, you may have said this to me because I started the same year, and I don't know if it was inspired by the blog, because I know I was only at my last job for 2 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I know like on my rides to work, I would be listening to
the Bible
in a year.
It probably was a conversation we had. But Tamika and I would have such good conversations about what we read in the Bible that day, what we had no clue was in the Bible. Like, girl, we say we love Christ. We're followers of
apologies for the slowness of the internet as it's coming through.
You are frozen.
Yeah, I'm a little bit frozen. So if you'll hold on that point about you and Tamika, you were frozen. We apologize. Again, the internet's going to internet every now and again. And it's telling me my internet connection is unstable. Let's see if it is. It is not.
It's you, not me. I'm good over here.
Yeah, but the sound comes through on this one. So if
I know it comes through on your end.
You ain't good. So yeah, brief pause.
Are you gonna be able to? Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna switch to a more stable connection. So I'm gonna filibuster a bit. So yeah, so the difficulties in reading the Bible in a year all surround just like having the time, and you have more time than I think that you understand and can give yourself credit for. You have more time than you are willing to, because learning who Jonathan McReynolds was by Make Room, it just like that's some meat in a song. It's just like, I make time for what I treasure. And it's the first time that was not used in the context of a earthly relationship. Because most times when people say that you make time for what you want to make time for, it's a relationship thing.
I'm assuming we're stable because I can see your face clearly now, and I can hear your words clearly.
Yes, we're good.
I don't know. I don't know what the last part was that you heard.
You had just started with
Tamika.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have started, after I started writing the blog, Tamika never stepped down from a challenge. She loved a challenge. I could say to her just passing in conversation, I'm going to start reading the Bible. I found a plan that's the year. And she'd be like, okay, let's do it. Like, she loves a good challenge. So she was my Bible reading buddy. We will find so many interesting things in our daily Bible reading. There's an app. There's millions and trillions of apps on the Uverse Bible app. I caught myself saying again. There are trillions of plans on the Uverse Bible app to help you read the Bible in a year. So we picked one that was a chronological reading to put the events of the Bible in order, to see if that would help us make sense of these different events and the things that were happening. And this was my first time really legitimately having like a focus on trying to understand. But what I like about those plans is that at the end of your day's reading, you can like make comments to the people that are reading it with you, and everybody can read it, and y'all can like discuss what's going on. So when I finish my morning reading in the morning, I would be like, I can't believe that. I've never heard this story before. And why don't people talk about this? And why don't pastors preach about that? There's just so much in the Bible that we skip over, we gloss over. So many stories and rich treasures in there. So many things that I just don't understand, that I don't agree with, and I need somebody to explain to me. But I think it's important for us, if we call ourselves Christians, to really understand the book that we use to help us guide our lives. I think it's irresponsible of us to walk around and not know, just talk out of the side of our necks and not know what's really in there. So does my breast smell like milk? Not so much anymore. It doesn't smell like infant formula. I've graduated, I would say, to baby foods and like solids? Regular solids.
You on solids?
Yeah, regular solids. Yeah.
You know,
I'm eating a normal diet.
And sometimes folks put stuff on your plate just to see how you're gonna deal with it, you know.
That's true. And then you have to decide if you want to eat that, or if you can look at it and see, this is something I don't need to eat.
Yeah, last year God was just like, here.
Oh, he put lots. He put lots. Ooh. He put lots of things on my plate that were challenging for me to chew, that did not taste good, that I did not want to digest. And so I spent last year really malnourished, if you want me to be 100% honest. And I think that's the point of the podcast, to be honest and transparent. I spent last year not really going to church, not even virtually. I spent most of last year not seeking his face, not really wanting to talk to him. My best friend knew I was in like a dark place. And I saw, I just said again. I saw a Bible study on Facebook. It kept coming up like as a recommendation of something I should do, which I thought was weird because I wasn't seeking out. Like, I think that Facebook gives you ads and stuff based on what you're searching for. And I was not searching for Jesus stuff last year. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah, but our phones be listening to us. So even if you was just talking, like you might have been on the couch just like, I just can't do it. Or you was crying about something, or we was crying about whatever we was crying. And it's just like, all right, better help.
She seems sad. What has worked for her in the past?
Like no, seriously. Like, no joke. I know it's the truth.
So I kept seeing this ad pop up for Elijah, a Bible study by Priscilla Shirer. I've looked at some of her books in the past and some of her Bible studies and just been like, it's okay. You know, I'm used to, I don't know. It was just okay. But it just kept popping up and it kept showing up. And so I mentioned it in passing to her, and she was like, I keep hearing people talk about the study. I think she was following somebody on Instagram that was doing the study and was like, oh, this study is everything. And so I said to her, let's do this Bible study together. Even though I was in a sunken place, a down place, was not attending church, I thought, let me try this and see what happens. And when I say, Priscilla, let the Lord use her to speak to my entire soul. The organ is appropriate because she spoke to my entire soul in that Bible study. So I was thankful that I had a friend that was willing to just do a personal Bible study with me. This is not a big group activity. Like, she knew that I didn't really want to talk to people. Like, I'm doing this Bible study because I know I need to, even though I don't want to. But literally every week, this woman was dropping knowledge. And you could tell she had been through something personally herself. And it's a study on the book of Elijah. It is so powerful. So that was one moment when I had to chew. Even though I didn't feel like eating that word, it gave me nourishment because I was very malnourished. I was not seeking out for Christ. Even though I know he's always with me, I mentally just was not in a place where I could even, I guess, think to ask for help. And the book of Elijah, well, looking at Elijah's life was so powerful because Elijah in his life reaches a point where he's exhausted. He is tired of ministry. He feels abandoned by God. I felt like his life mirrored mine so much. And it was just beautiful to get that word when I am like at my lowest low. So you're right. My breath does not smell like milk anymore. I'm eating big girl.
No, and I think that that's a huge component in a lot of things is also if you start getting your meat, right? If there had been more meat, so say we had decided to take our meat in 2020, we made it all the way through. You know, we were doing a lot of different things. You know, really, really diving in. While 2021 still would have been hard, I think that there would have been more recipes for us to call back to. You know, like the ingredients of what it is that you need, because when you go through things, and what was always been interesting about me and the meat, is no matter what sermon I did from the time that I started doing sermons, it would always be some sort of reflection or reflector. Like either the week before, I would either go through whatever it was that I was about to preach about that I, like there was an argument that would start between me and Kanae or something, and then like I'd be diving into the word to try and formulate what I wanted my message to be, or what God wanted my message to be, I should say, because I've talked about my process on here, and it was always something that I needed, especially given the deaths that would happen prior to. Every time it was, like something would be about, legacy or following your dreams and falling in love with God and bridging the gap of all of these different things, and like chewing that meat and having that peace for each of the people that went on before me. I remember my sermon on New Year's, or and I think that was one that hit everybody, or something. It was either New Year's, around, it was like a homily or something around Uncle Blue at that point, at least something in that regard, and it nourishes your soul when you're in these dark places, when you're in these happy places, when you're on the road now, like looking back at what the blog was to where we are now, and knowing the meat that we've had to eat, the things that we've had to chew, the experiences. Our fight is a chewing of meat and understanding growth spiritually, and being there for people spiritually, praying for people, and realizing that it is God who orchestrates our lives, not the other way around. And so many different blog posts that I know that we'll go over, and I feel like this was the perfect blog post to start with, because there's so much meat, growth, and understanding you can see from even our episodes. If you go back and listen to anything in season 1, you'll immediately recognize, my personal growth, her growth. I'm like, I ain't no preacher. To 5 episodes or whatever later, however many, like, I guess I'm a preacher. And God probably laughs at the thought of like, all right, I'll show you some. You know, so
I have a great sense of humor, so I can only believe that God has a great sense of humor since I am created in his image and likeness. You know what I mean?
I think about this all the time. He was being real specific in regards to me recently. So we watched, I don't know if you watched this on Netflix, Over the Moon.
Nope.
It's a Netflix original. I think you should check it out. And then we watch Encanto.
Is it a series or a movie?
Just a movie.
Do not ruin it for me.
I'm not.
Okay.
But the theme between both of these movies is family and loss and how you deal with that. Like, and I was just like, bro, are you playing with me right now? Like, I looked up like, are you serious? Like, this ain't, and I'm like getting overly emotional or overly teary-eyed in these, kids movies, but we love kids movies around here.
Yes, we do. We watch them quite often.
But, cause I mean, they're not really for kids. Cause like most kids just throw on a song in Coco Melon. Like they have to actually make these movies for adults. They just have childlike characters that say some funny stuff from time to time. But those two movies, I was laughing because I was like, I see what you're doing here. I specifically see what you're doing, in Encanto, where I'm thinking about my gifts and like trying to build them and not feeling like, for years I didn't feel like I was part of the family in terms of stuff that I would try and do. And I told you this before, but you understood why. There were also other things going on at that time because we spent a lot of time together. And so, even the appreciation of my gifts when they were appreciated, I didn't notice it the way that I should have. Like rapping and everything else is something that's always been hard. And so chasing it and being at like the beginning of all of this, because I have a sister who like Facebook again, playing into all this stuff, had shown me a memory of like a picture of an event you had done. And, I was supporting and sharing the picture of the flower arrangement that you had put together and some other stuff. And I remember like how proud of you I was, but at the same time, how far I was like feeling.
You see my co-host?
I do see your co-host.
Yeah, he's trying to get in the screen.
And how I would feel kind of like, man, I don't have nothing like that. I don't have nothing that people are coming to me for like, this. And that can be hard. It can make you, especially like in our family, I feel like when you got gifts and you got stuff that you do good, people ask you for it. And
yes, they will, honey.
So I think that was something that was kind of hard. It's kind of like seeing these things. But then, like I said, like you just learn so much more when you dive into your Bible or dive further into a chapter or dive into the book, because a chapter amidst a book, like the book of Job, going from front to back, but also understanding things that preceded it, the different ramifications of things. Like there are all of these, everything is connected. Like if you don't read the Old Testament, it doesn't hit to me as hard in understanding the significance of when Jesus came and what bloodline he's in.
I have an even greater example. If you base the entirety of my life on just this one blog that I've written, you miss so many other different parts of me. You don't know me totally or completely. So I think that's another great example. I'm sorry.
I was about to ask you, is your coworker back there playing with
something? My cat is upset because hold on, he is having like a whole fit. He has a whole house to go play in, but because I'm here, he's like, okay, what's going on in the backyard? Okay, so I'm sorry, what were we talking about? Because he threw me.
You were given, like, if they took a glimpse of one
Yeah.
of
If you
the
just if you just take this blog from me, your breath smells like milk, and that's all you know of me, you don't get a full, complete picture of who I am. You just have a glimpse of a moment in my life. So you don't have a complete picture. And of course, we don't know everything there is to know about Jesus. And we know that the Bible is inspired by God. Um, it's God breathed, man wrote it. But man, it gives us a lot more information than just going off of one little verse or one experience that we have with him. There's just so much more to him. And I've learned that, I already knew that about him, but I would definitely say the last 3 years, I've learned more about him. I've grown more. And my having a hard time. My experiences with God are not limited to the Bible. I think that's selling God short and
Oh, that's a good
missing
question that I think I'll ask you when you finish.
that's selling God short and missing the fullness of who he is. However, I do think it's important for me um, just to try to know more about him than just the typical verses.
What would you say is where you get the most God outside of the Bible and the church? I'll start with mine, so that way, if you need an example of what I'm talking about, for
Okay.
me, it's always music. For me, it's always like rap specifically, because the way you have to put these words together that create a story, create a metaphor, create a simile that plays throughout the whole song, that every word is meaning something, always says to me God was in the room writing. Because there's no way to, like, I don't care how your brain works, for everything to fall into place the way it does, to like either inspire, to um hammer home a point, to go back to a point, to build a story, because it's so much shorter in a lot of ways than a book. And there are so many songs you can listen to and get the fullness of what it feels like to read a book, or something like that, depending upon how the song is executed. And it's always music to me, because it just screams it and you feel it. Whether it's 90s gospel specifically for me, or anything rap related, there's always, like, I'm like, yeah, God is real.
I'm glad you asked me that question, because one of the things that I was really searching for when I started doing Bible study with other ladies, I wanted to make God more real to me beyond the verses in the Bible. Who is God and what is my experience with God? Our second Bible study that we did together was experiencing God. And in experiencing God, they describe the different ways that you can experience God. You can experience God through prayer, through dreams, through other people confirming things to you. So it wasn't just about reading the Bible. It was about God is bigger than that. He's more than that. There are different ways to experience God. I know this sounds maybe cliche, but God, honestly, for me, is a still small voice. And I just know that it's him. Here's the problem: my obedience level is not where it should be. Oftentimes, I will hear that still small voice. And for me, I process God. Okay, I hear that still small voice. I believe that's what I need to be doing. It is always confirmed by an outside source. That outside source could be the Bible. It could be a song, like you say. It could be somebody saying something directly to me, but that's always confirmed for me. So for me, that's how I know, okay, this is definitely not just me thinking. It's God trying to tell me, get in line, do what I want you to do. So for me, it starts with that still small voice, the feeling like, oh, I need to do something. Like with the blog, I was like, ugh. It was so weird to me. And it was something that I wouldn't think of myself because I am an introvert. I was like, oh, why would I write a blog? That's just weird. I don't know anybody that has a blog. Like, why would I do that? It was in my head. In my head, you need to write a blog. I actually went to church. Fun fact, my cousin was like, I'm not going to Women's Day. I don't feel like going to Women's Day. I ain't going. And our lives, like I said, are very intertwined. So we typically did everything together. I'm an introvert, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to church by myself. I'm going to Women's Day. I feel like there's something there for me. And that the speaker was talking, and she specifically said, if the Lord told you to write, then you need to write. And that was something I had been battling with in my head, going back and forth. And to get that confirmation that same day from somebody that didn't know, the private conversation I was having with God, like that was like for me, that was like, okay, girl, do it. Hey, Kanae.
This is no.
Okay, sorry. I just had to speak.
No. Finish your thought.
So for me, that was just confirmation that I needed. So for me, that's how God speaks clearly to me. When I have that still small voice, that feeling on the inside, I need to do this. And it's confirmed by a different source without me saying out loud, I feel like God is telling me to do this. He will send confirmation for me. So it might be different for somebody else. I have asked people like, how do you know God is speaking to you? What is your experience with God? And it's different for everybody, but that's just mine. So I'm glad you asked that question, not to be super deep and like.
No, it was eloquent, and it was what it needed to be, because like I was just going to say, now that's in order. My number one is always going to be music. Number two is nature. So like,
I'm big on the nature one too.
Bruh, listen. Like there's something about, especially being up here, because so many people would be like, before we moved up here to Washington or whatever, close to Seattle and whatnot, Tacoma, it's gonna rain, it rains so much, and it don't bother me. Like whenever it rains and I can sit and listen to the rain, like whether I get sleepy or not, there's just beauty in listening to the rain. There's beauty in autumn. That's my favorite season. And I'm like, it's God. Like I just, there's nothing else that can do this. Sunsets and everything else. And it's all intricate. Like, especially the way that certain views will just come to you. And we've been a lot of places. A lot of beautiful places, a lot of beautiful water. Like, I love the water or the ocean in Cozumel. Like, it's crazy that an ocean can look like that it can be turquoise. And then when we out on the deep sea, it's the darkest blue you've ever seen. And it's my favorite color. I've gone to museums with my sister and other people and things of that nature and been like, just how did your mind even do this? So, well, technically, I guess it's nature, and then like 3, because I was gonna say food, but food is 4. 3 is
there's something before food.
3 is creativity and the way people create.
Yeah, people are very creative.
Like your creative brain is on a whole nother level, especially yes, in regards to arts and crafts and everything else. I know that I have the same level of creativity. It's just different. And I realized that more as I get older. And I've also realized that you will lean to me for certain aspects of that creativity, whether I notice it or not. But food is 4th. I mean, they're all up there, but food is 4th for the simple fact that it's like,
it's so good.
Bruh. Like, I'm like,
but actually, your mentioning of food is a great way for us to wrap this up, because food is delicious. It takes us chewing it up though to really experience it and to get all the flavors out of it, to really enjoy it. That's how we get the nutrients. We have to chew that stuff up. Smoothies are great. I like them a lot, but there's something about chewing some food that just can't be beat. And we're both foodies. So I would definitely say my breath doesn't smell like milk anymore. The question is, does your breath still smell like milk? Do you have an immature relationship with Christ, or are you growing in him? And it's up to you to make the decision to do more, to be more, to reach out to others that don't know Christ. That's what we're here for. So I hope part of I struggle and I wrestle with myself because I don't ever want to sound too churchy, but I also don't want to ever forget the mission. It's not just about me. And this podcast really is not even just for other Christians, but to those that don't know Christ. So they'll develop a hunger or even like a thirst for him. And I want to know him more. So that's always my prayer. I don't get on here just to talk and hear myself talk. If I wanted to just talk, I would just call this guy and talk to him. He, as you can see, he has no problem.
Zero. Like, you just I gotta be half my mama and half my sister. Like, you gotta have a good game on your phone and good ears for listening. But
I think it's amazing to see how prophetic this blog has been in my life. You talking about somebody that's had to chew on some stuff. I've had to chew on some things that really have grown me and matured me, changed my appetite. So something to think about. I hope you guys really thoroughly enjoyed our review of whether our breath smells like milk. Are we chewing on the meat? What are we doing with ourselves? And I hope you will. If you've listened this far, I will tell you, I'm very grateful that you took the time to listen. With my new job, I listen to podcasts all day long, and there are millions of podcasts out there available for you to listen to. And the fact that you decided to take time out to listen to ours is a treat. We're definitely not ignorant of the fact that you have a plethora of choices, and we're grateful that you took time out of your day to just listen to us ramble. And thank you for being patient during our technical difficulties. It's going to get better.
It's going to get better. And we're thankful. I mean, that we know this is the most wonderful podcast of your day. So I'm not worried about any of that. I'm competing. We don't do that. But I mean, make sure that at BibleStudyGirl.com on the blogs, you're down in the comments. We read them. We seize them. We engage with you, and we want to continue.
Oh, wait, before you start your wrap up, I just wanted to say this. Another reason I like this blog recap is because Bible Study Brother hasn't read most of these.
I knew it. No, get out of here. Get out of here. They got other episodes where you talked about me. Nope, not anymore. You've just been muted. Nope, muted. No one can hear you. Anyway, I mean, I'm going to unmute her in a second, but she is super muted right now.
I'm still muted. Hello, testing. Did you unmute me?
I did unmute you. Okay, I was trying to be nice.
But I was just going to say, he hasn't read most of these, so it's always a treat when I shoot it to him and say, hey, this is what we're talking about today. Read it. He'll be like, oh, that was a good one.
I read both of these when they came out. Okay. Both of these. Okay, this was early on. Both of these I read.
Okay.
Anyway, make sure you're engaging with us at BibleStudyGirl.com, down in the comments where there are blog posts every day. At some point, regularly scheduled program will continue, but you have enough blog posts to read through that I guarantee you in those 52 pages, somewhere along the line, she'll start up again. But there will be, because I'm prophetic in this, there will be blog posts every day for you to go and digest and read and get you some meat in your diet. If you'd like to contact us, make sure that you hit us up on Twitter at BibleStudyGirl, 2, because I've been getting it wrong, because we be forgetting stuff. At BibleStudyGirl2019 at gmail.com if you'd like to be a guest, if you have comments, if you'd like to reach out to us to bring our podcast to your your state or whatever the case may be. We'll talk fees and all that stuff in there. Just, hit that email. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bible Study _ well, Instagram is Bible Study Girl. Nothing else. We the only Bible Study Girl on Instagram, and also on Facebook. We're also Bible Study Girl. Follow the page, like it. You can listen to the podcast there. If you never want to leave your Facebook, it uploads there, and it makes it very easy for you to keep up with us and the podcast postings. Remember, folks, it's not anime preaches, it's not food, it's not milk preach, but we preach.
And until we meet again, guys, keep preaching.